It's not really possible to outrun oppression. Andor, episode 7. Yes, took me a second. Um, this this show's really good. It's still really good. I think it's paced really excellently, and it's bringing up exactly the things that I would want it to, and the way it's building towards Cassian eventually becoming just a full-blown member of the rebellion, and that it's not just suddenly, oh, these are good guys, I'll join, like really hammering home, you know, you either do that or you just accept what's going on and not letting him just duck out on that. It's building really well, and there's a couple of details that I really enjoy that are in this one. Firstly, we have the whole thing with the Empire basically cracking down hard on literally everybody because of what happened with the heist. And first of all, accurate to authoritarian governments, because authoritarians and fascists often overlap, not always the same thing. But in both cases, you end up, although even though I said not always the same thing, like the empire is fascist. Let's be let's be clear about that. But when they feel threatened, they only know how to do one thing, and that is to be tougher, to do the same stuff they already did, but more, to be more authoritarian, to be more fascist. They don't have any other way of dealing with anything, because since they view themselves as the rightful rulers and controllers, any resistance should be met only with violence, never accommodation. So the only thing that they can ever do is just crack down harder. But as is noted by I forget her name, but by the supervisor who we've been following, who's kind of uncovering the scope of the rebellion, this actually kind of plays into the rebellion's hands, because before, with the level it was at before, like, it wasn't good, but it was scattered enough that some people, enough people, could pretend maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's only bad in some places. But you decide you're going to crack down on everybody, that's going to bring more people in line with the aims of the rebellion. And what I also really love is fairly shortly after we have that scene, we then have the scene with Stellan Skarsgård, whose character I still can't remember his name, and Mon Mothma, where it's very clear that he accepted a while ago the cost of what he's trying to do. And I don't mean his personal cost, and I don't mean money, although he has a focus on money. I mean, it's going to make the lives of people across the galaxy substantively worse before it can make it better. He also recognizes that if it gets harder for them, there will be more support for the rebellion, and he's accepted that as basically a cost of doing business. But while that may or may not have to be the reality of the situation, it has made him, possibly by necessity, a little bit cold to that actual cost. So having Mon Mothma point out to him, this is going to actively hurt people who aren't even involved in this conflict. He's already accepted that will happen, but she rightfully pushes back. And there's debates to be had as to whether or not that is a necessary step. He seems to take it either as a cost of business or as something that is politically advantageous given the situation, because it'll drum up more sympathies for his side. But that is dehumanizing for how he is viewing all this. And it's worth pointing out that it's dehumanizing. Even if it's necessary, it's still kind of messed up. And that's also good to depict, because that's the situation that authoritarianism and fascism puts people in. Trying to fight it is going to come at a cost, and a cost that honestly shouldn't have to be paid. But that's the situation that we're now in. And again, I keep circling back to something I said early on, I think in the very first review. All these people are miserable, whether they are part of the Empire, fighting the Empire actively, or just trying to exist with as little hassle as possible. Everybody is miserable, because that's what this kind of system does. It grinds down everyone who isn't literally at the top of the pyramid. Pretty much everybody other than Palpatine is miserable, and that is correct. And nobody can trust anybody, even people who are definitely on the same sides. We see more of the backbiting going on within the Imperial structure itself, because yes, that is the kind of interaction that is incentivized by this kind of power structure and this kind of governing philosophy of you get the end results you need however you need to get them. And the conflicts of those who are like, well, we must obey these rules because they are set down, and those who are willing to skirt them to get an advantage. And they're all willing to stab each other in the back for a shot at advancement, however they're approaching it, rule followers or not. So that's all great. But then you've even got stuff like the woman who raised Cass and her telling him, I'm going to stay and be part of this rebellion. And part of her rationale being she's old, and what the hell else is she going to do at that point? And given how few dams I am finding myself with as I get older, I sympathize with that quite a bit. But in addition to that, she assumes that he could never get to the same place that she is. Or with Mon Mothma and her friend, who I forget the actor's name, but they file him under actors I just like to see. I've liked him since Coupling. Boy, that's going back a ways. But seeing that interaction where, and I love the way he words it when she says that this is kind of a political favor she's going to, he's like, then maybe you shouldn't ask me, which is just a really polite way of giving her an out before things go too far. And then for him to slowly realize, like, she is literally on your exact same side and probably doing more than you do. But these people are still disconnected, even though they're on the same side, and they still have to approach each other in this weird tiptoe way just to find out if they are even on the same side. And it is distinctly possible that he will still turn out to backstab her in some way, shape, or form, because this is the environment that fascism breeds. Literally, nobody can trust anybody, and that goes at every level, both sides of the conflict. This is really, really showing a great, wonderful, firm understanding of what this kind of system does to people. And again, as I've noted, frequently normal people or people trying to live normal lives. Cassian goes back and touches base with the woman that we haven't seen since the third episode. Not just the one who raised him, the one who, like, he had possibly some romantic thing at some point with. But, all their lives are getting worse because when threatened, fascism makes it harder for everybody. That's the only thing it knows how to do. It attains its power by being brutal, and when that power is threatened, all it will do is just be more brutal. And we get tiny flashbacks to, Cass losing people earlier in his life. So you can even see the seeds have been planted, but he's still fighting. He still doesn't want to get involved. But then he is literally just in the wrong place at the wrong time and slightly looking over his shoulder because, again, he has cause to, and that's what this kind of environment does to people. And that alone is cause for him to be arrested and charged with what would have previously been a 6-month sentence, now 6 years. Because you don't get to run away from this. You can try, but as it gets worse for everyone, whether you have picked a side or not. Because fascism only cares about strength. It doesn't care about people. This just is so well thought out, and it's really well layered. I think it's really well paced. I'm still really impressed with this. And halfway in, generally by this point, I think I'd said incorrectly previously there are 9 episodes. I think there's going to be 12. But at this point, the halfway mark is usually a little bit of a demarcation for me. It's where if a show is going to start faltering, it's usually going to be about the halfway mark. On the flip side, if a show is going to start getting better than it started, it's usually about the halfway mark. Not always. And I'm not necessarily saying that this is getting better, but it's not faltering. It's not dropping off. It is not only continuing to do what it has done so far really, really well, but it is adding important reminders of stuff that has been established. And it is also moving things forward that need to be made clear if this is the story you're going to tell. If you're going to tell the story of how fascism being in place and then getting worse in order to try and protect itself affects people, this is a really good execution of that. Andor, episode 7. I still think this is great. What do you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon's what pays the bills, allows me to do this as my living, even if you can't assist me that way. Like, share, subscribe also do help, actually quite a bit. But don't worry too much about it because we try and take a relaxed attitude around here. So you can come on back next time you need a break. All right, time to thank my highest supporting patrons. Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfullah, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Emu Delkey, Leotha Boyd, Toy Loli, Becky Sparks, Frenobulax, The Poodle, Zach, Bookworm, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperol, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, Shayla Gourlay, Brendan LaRose, and TT. Thank you for your support. If you want to hear me try and say your name while this little guy tries to chew on my earrings, well, you can check out the Patreon for the support tiers that get you a shout out. Thanks so much. You are a pain in my butt.